Made.com just released their very own AI agents. They're no-code, modular, and built to run on autopilot. In today's video, I'll show you how to go from zero to having your first AI agent built within Made.com. We're going to go step by step, and we're not going to require any coding whatsoever. Plus, we're also going to look into the pros and cons of this platform versus other ones like N8N and see how they compare to each other as well. But first, let's jump into a quick demo to see exactly how they work. Please, can you tell me the latest AI news? We'll then send us off, and then what we should be able to do is, if we do run once, should be able to go through, analyze the request, trigger our scenario, so exactly as we've got there, that's great. It's gone through, it's now searching the internet for us, and it's going to be able to return those results. So if we come back into our agent, what we should see any second now is that we get that response back. Again, we're going to touch on the pros and cons quickly in a second, just around how this compares to N8N and what my final thoughts are on the agent. As you can see here, we're not able to see what that agent's doing until it fully completes the request. As we can see on the left-hand side here, we've now got all of that information coming through, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And we've got the ability to respond back to this as we need with that text response as well. And if you want to get access to all of the resources that we're going to be running through today, all you need to do is come across to the community. We're going to come into Classroom. You'll be able to come across to AI agents. And then you'll see in Made.com, we've got this build your very first Made.com AI agent. And you'll have all of the resource here. So all you'll need to do, for example, is come into a scenario. You'll be able to come down to the bottom, do import from Blueprint. You'll be able to choose the file that we've already generated. So for example, here, this is the Slack agent that we've generated to receive all the messages, and it'll be all ready to go without you having to do a single thing. But as mentioned, we're going to be running through exactly how to build this together today and the 4 different elements that sit within it. So first off, let's have a look at N8N's AI agent. So if we come into here, what we're going to see is there's going to be a slightly different structure for N8N versus Made.com. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, they're going to look like this, where they've got an AI agent sort of module element, and then we're going to be able to go through and add sort of the tools, the different LLMs that sit behind it, give it some chat memory, as well as give it the ability to go off and complete different actions. Now, Made.com have taken a slightly different approach. What they're doing is having one specific trigger module or app that we have within Made.com to be able to go through and do it. And there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of before we go through and build it out. So how does it work? Well, actually, what we've got here is a different way of approaching it with the AI agent. Now, we're going to have some global settings that we're going to be able to control, as well as some scenario-specific or additional tools. So we're going to be able to specify the system sort of prompt, as well as tools that it's always got access to. And this is really good because we could generate one agent to run across multiple different scenarios. Or we can actually go into specific scenarios, load up that AI agent that we've already generated, and then give it some additional tools as well as instructions to go through and complete it as well. And we're going to be coming back and touching on how to work with the sub-scenarios, inputs and outputs that we're going to need from that as well. So we're going to come across to Make.com. We're going to come onto the left-hand side here. You'll see that we've got AI agents. This is currently a beta feature. So again, not everyone's going to have access to this. What you want to do is click on this. We're going to have a few demo videos at the bottom here, as well as get started tutorials at the top. You'll come up to the top here, we'll be able to create a new agent, as well as configure or update any of the previous ones that we've made. Today, we're going to go through and generate one from scratch. So as you can see here, the first thing you're going to need to do is generate a connection. So if we come into here, what you'll be able to see is we've got all the different LLMs that are currently compatible. So again, for example, if we wanted to use OpenAI, you want to click on OpenAI. We're going to need to rename the connection. So for example, Make.com AI agent demo. We're going to need to add in our API key. So to get the API key, we're going to come across to Playground OpenAI. We're going to come across to the top, create a new key. We'll do Make.com demo of AI agents. We'll copy our API key. We'll come back across. We'll paste into here so that we've got access to it, and we'll do save. Again, if you wanted to, for example, do it for Claude, you need to come through to console.anthropic.com. I'll include all of the links below so you can get access to this. And all you would need to do is generate a key so that you can go through and access it and use it. Again, this is where we're going to touch on some of the benefits, pros and cons a bit later on, just around some of these agents. So we can come through and give it a specific name. And in this use case, we're going to be calling it a virtual business assistant because it's going to be something that will be able to run in the background and help you with the operations. We're going to be able to choose the different LLMs that we've got available. So within OpenAI, we could choose, for example, GPT-4o Mini to keep that cost down. And we're going to be able to give it that global system prompt that we mentioned a bit earlier. So this is where it's going to be consistent across all of the different elements that we're going to be working with and deploying it within the scenarios. So we'll give it a quick prompt, and we're just going to say, if I just scroll this back up, helpful assistant that can check stock levels, place orders, answer questions, summarize sales, only use the tools that are available, clear, concise, business, attitude. Again, always use UK spelling. There's a couple of different parts there. Again, you can go and prompt it to however you want. We've got other demo videos on the channel that cover exactly how to get the best prompting possible. We'll do save. And now we've got the first screen here. So we've got that, again, global system prompt that we're going to be able to use, as well as give it system tools. So this is where, if you've already got some specified scenarios that you've already generated, we'd be able to add them in here. So again, if you've got lots of them already created, maybe you would want a make.com folder where you've got new AI agent tools. I've got one there, for example, that we could already use. What you're going to need to make sure, though, is if we come into one that we've already generated, is that they're already activated. So as you can see in the top right-hand corner here, they're already turned on so that they're going to be running constantly in the background. If we come back into our agent, for example, if I do check stock levels, you'll see that we've got one here for check stock levels. If we come through to where I've saved a couple of templates that we've already generated, as you can see here, you'll be able to then automatically add them onto your agent, and they're going to be the tools that it has access to, and it needs to be specified as on demand or immediately, i.e. how they're going to be running in the background. So again, this is similar to if we come back to NA10, just being able to add all of your different tools on here, like you would to go through and use that, but instead of being in one specific scenario or workflow, they're going to be consistent across anything, across any of the scenarios that we add this agent to. So for example, today we're just going to go through and not add any at the moment because we're going to go through and build them out in a second. We'll be able to change the agent settings. So again, we've got our agent name here, we've got the model, we've got the maximum output token. So again, remember, 1,000 tokens is around 750 words. So just remember that ratio. The recursion limit is basically how many messages previous it's going to be able to go back and complete an action on. And this is going to be iterations from history count. So basically the last 10 messages that it will be able to actually complete some actions on. We'll do save. So now we've got this agent actually live. Now to generate this, we're going to come into a new scenario. And this is where we're going to be triggering it through Slack. So we want to come through and do Slack. We're going to do watch for public messages and channels. But how do we connect it with Slack? Well, we need to do add. We're going to need to come up with a name. We'll give it a name such as YouTube, make.com AI agent demo. We'll be able to do save. This is going to come through and connect us into our account. So we're going to do allow. Then what we're going to go through and do is specify the specific channel that we wanted to have access to. So we've got lots of different ones in here already. So if we come down, we'll do one that I generated a bit earlier, which is going to be our make.com AI agent. So there we go. And this is going to be the last two results that it's going to pull through. But again, you can change that to 10, whatever you wanted it to be able to go through and use this. So what we'll be able to do is from now on, I'm going to say watch for messages. Brilliant. So the next part we're going to go through quickly is just do for Slack. We're going to do search for a message. We're going to connect our account again. So that's exactly the same one as the demo that we've just done. It may just ask you to update your permissions. That's absolutely okay. It's just for the different modules or integrations is how it works best. Again, we're going to add in a quick query here, which is basically specifying that we've got anything in this channel to actually come through. We're going to be able to redo the last 10 actual messages that came through. Again, this is just some of the chat history feature. I found that I prefer it to use it this way versus some of the other ones that are available within make.com's AI agent natively. We're going to touch on that in a minute. We'll do sort by timestamp, and we're going to do sort descending. And then we'll do save, and then we're just going to rename this to get chat history. So now what we'll be able to do is if I load up Slack, we'll be able to send in a message. Here we go. So now we've got it on the left-hand side here. You can see some of the previous messages I was sending through. So for example, we can say hi there. We can send this off. Now, if we trigger this once, what we should see is that we've got this information coming through. So the message is text hi there. So again, that's working successfully. That's what we wanted. And we've got the previous messages that came through. So again, that connects to our chat history function like we would have in NA10. So now we've got the information coming through. We'll just use a text aggregator, there we go, text aggregator. We're going to do get chat history, and then we're just going to do our messages. So we'll pull this across where we've got our username, and then we'll just say where we've got our text, and then we're just going to do a message under that as well. So now what we'll be able to do is get the chat history and be able to pass that into our AI agent. The next part we're going to go through and do is just a router, so we'll be able to use it in the voice or the text function like we showed a bit earlier. So now if I come through, we'll just minimize this down a little bit for the agent. what we're going to do is have the first option, which is going to be our voice agent. And then what we need to do is specify in here if the files, we're going to do file name. And what we want to say is contains case insensitive, audio, message. We'll do save. And then we'll come down the bottom and we'll do text agent. And then what we're going to say is we want there to be files. And then we want name, and we'll say does not equal to. Then we'll do audio underscore message. We'll do save. So now what we'll be able to do is just give this a quick test to show you exactly what I mean. So if we come to the left-hand side here, we'll come down to record an audio clip. Testing, 1, 2, 3. So now we'll be able to send that off. So now what we'll do is, if you see in here, our current executions say that we've got some text, but we've not got any additional information in here. What we will be able to do is if we do run once, we should see that we've got a new file in here. So again, this is going to be our audio message that we've just uploaded, and we'll be able to go through and use that. So if we come up to the top here, we'll now be able to do Slack, and we're going to do download a file. We'll add our account in there. So again, this is just the one that we were using a bit earlier. Again, we'll just need to go through and update our authentication if we need to as well. There we go. So now we'll be able to do the URL of the private downloads. We'll come down to the left-hand side, file, URL private download, and then we'll just say get audio message. And we're just going to use a GPT, and then we're going to use a transcribe. There we go. And we're going to be using that Slack one that we just downloaded. And we're just going to say, please transcribe the audio file word for word as it's the request from the user. We'll be able to output as a JSON, but again, you could do text if you wanted to. We'll just save, and we'll just rename this to transcribe audio note. There we go. So now we'll be able to go through, and we're going to be using our AI agent. So if we come through, we'll search for AI agent. There we go. We've now got make.com AI agent. We'll be able to run an agent. So now we're going to be able to see all of the different information associated with the agents that we've already built. So if I come down here, you can see the two different ones that we've already generated in the past. We can see that it's got no system tools because, again, if we come back here, we didn't define any of those more global tools. Currently, we can go through and add those in. We're going to be using some of the additional tools in this current example. And what do we mean by that? Well, as you can see here, we've got the system tools, additional tools. So these are going to be specific for our scenario, where these are going to be used across any of the different scenarios that we add that agent into. The thread ID, this is where we're going to be able to go through and add in an ID of a conversation. So maybe if you're using something like Telegram, that's going to be a really great example to be able to get that output that way. We're going to need to add our system instructions in here. So this is just your AI agent prompt like you would do using ChatGPT normally, or you would be using NA10's agents as well. We're also going to come down here and we're going to be able to add messages in there as well. So this is just as you would with any of the other AI LLM sort of integrations that we have, just being able to send messages off, and we can specify what that information would be. So let's go through and start using this. I've just pasted a quick prompt in there, which basically says, is providing a concise professional response back to the user. It's going to try not to output any styles or any hashtags in this. And we're going to include relevant information where possible, but not go too much. What we're going to need to say is here is the user's request. And then we're going to need to put across the text. So that's going to be all good to go. And now you've got the option of actually running it synchronously. So what this basically means is it will carry on if you had additional steps, executing them instead of actually waiting for this agent to complete before we went through to the next step. So we'll do save. But now what we're going to go through and do is just give it a quick test to show you exactly how it works. So what we'll be able to do is come back to the start. We're going to do choose where to start. We're going to do choose manually, just so that we can get that specific voice note that we just sent through so you can see exactly how it works. So there we go. Now if we send this off, what it will go through is it will transcribe it. And now we're going to start seeing that information come through on what the AI agent's able to do. So if we zoom in here, what you can see is we've got the messages that have come through from that specific user. We've not added a thread ID at the moment. We've not specified any of the tools. We're going to go through and add that in a minute. We've given it some clear instructions. So that's that main prompt that we used. And now we've got the output from that AI agent. So as you can see here, so it's giving us the response of your message has been received. How can I help you today? We're going to see the execution steps, so actually what that AI agent's done at what stage. So for example, here, this is more of the priming prompt. Then if we come down, we've got here is the user's request, and then we've got the output from that AI agent. So again, think about that NA10, that step-by-step execution, how it's going through and doing it. We've also got the token summary, the usage details, the AI information. So again, lots and lots of information in here. It's a bit harder to find and you only get it afterwards. I think that's something that NA10 does really good. You're able to see what the AI agent's doing as it goes through and executes the task. So now it's got the ability to receive the information and execute tasks. We're going to need to go through and add some tools. So how are we going to do that? Well, you're going to need to come into a new scenario and you're going to need to generate it there. So for example, in here, if we wanted to do Airtable to be able to check some information, we could go through search all records. We're going to connect it to our database that we've got in here. So this is just some example stock level information just around what we've got. We'll come back into our scenario. We're just going to change this to our make.com AI agent. So again, if you've never done this before, you need to go through and do add connection, Airtable OAuth. You go through and connect the base up just to make sure that you're using the exact one that you want. And then what it will show you is exactly what you can see here, which is that make.com AI agent, which is this base here. And then we've got this specific table, which is stock levels. So if we come back into our agent, we're going to do stock levels. We'll say that we want to output all of the information that we've got in there. We're not going to put a formula in there, but you could if you wanted to. And we're going to give it a limit of 100, just so that if we had 100 products, it would be able to return all of that information. Now, what we're going to need to do is actually two different things. So first of all, we're going to need to make sure that we save this. We can go through and actually specify this to run on demand. So we're going to change this to run on demand. Again, that's how it has to be set up to go through and be used in the future. We'll do save. Now, if we want to return all of that information back into our actual agent, we're going to need to come through and do text and then tools and then text aggregator. There we go. And this is going to basically aggregate all of the stock information that we've got. So what we can do is dash, and then we'll come through and do what the product name is. We can do number in stock, and then we can pull that across. So in stock, we can say restock threshold. We can pull that across, and then we could add in the supplier email as well. And we'll pull that across. So now what this will be able to do is return all of the information that we've got stored. So if I just show you quickly, we run one, we've got all of these different bundles, which are all of the different products that we've got access to. So now if we were to run this module, what it would do is basically store all of this information so that we've got one long text that we're sending back with all of this information versus the individual modules. And the reason for this is because we need to come right to the end here, search for scenarios, and then what we're going to do is return output. So this is going to return the output back to our AI agent. And we'll just rename this to return info to AI agent. So what we can do is save. We'll come back. We need to make sure that we're turned on up the top here so it's activated and we're running on demand. If we come back into our AI agent, what we need to do is just refresh this page. So we'll just make sure that we've saved everything just because we made some updates. We'll refresh and come back into that specific agent. There we go. We'll open up our tools. And now what we'll be able to do is YouTube and we can do check stock levels. We'll see it's activated and we'll be able to give it a description so it knows when and how to activate this scenario. So for example, in this use case, we could just add in that it's able to see the stock level of our products, the price, as well as the contact email for the suppliers. So we could go through it and use that. And now we've got the ability to call this information as we need. So if I do save, we'll come across. We'll do Slack. We're going to do create a message. We're going to select from lists. So that specific public channel that we had, which is going to be our make.com AI agents. We're going to be able to put across the response. So that's going to send it back in our chat on the left-hand side here. And then you can go through and add some other information. So for example, I could come down and do AI agent just so we know who that is. Again, you can go through and change the emojis, icons, all of that sort of stuff, so that you'll be able to use it. So now we'll get the response from that AI agent back into our chat. So if I come through, we'll come to the left-hand side. We'll do an audio clip. Please can you check the current stock levels that we have? We'll be able to send that off. And then what we'll be able to do is run once, and it should be able to capture that latest information. So if we come into here, the scenario, so we've got, please can you check the current stock levels, and we can see the response on the left-hand side here from the AI agent, as well as all the steps it took. Now, as you can see here, it's not returning that specific information, but if we come across and we come out of here, we can see that it was executed successfully. That's because I forgot in the output element here to add scenario outputs. add output structure. We're going to need to add stock levels. We'll be able to add in a description here, so we can say the current stock levels of the warehouse. We're going to say this is text. We're going to say it's required yes. We're going to do save. Oh, sorry, we need to come back and just connect that all up as one word. And then what we'll be able to do is put across from the left-hand side. So our module, as you can see on the left there, that aggregation to be able to use in that conversation. And that's where, as you see down the bottom here, we've got the scenario inputs and outputs. This is where you're going to need to specify inputs and outputs that you want to get and where they're going to be passed back into that AI agent. So if we come across here, as you can see here, the way that it would basically work is that we're going to send off our request from the AI agent into a sub scenario, get all of that information and send it back. What we're also going to need to do is specify those inputs and outputs. And we're going to run through that quickly just in our demo around sending emails, as well as being able to search the internet. And that's where you can see some examples down there as well. So let's come back into our AI agent. We'll give this a quick test again. So we'll come across to the left-hand side here, and then we're just going to specify that exact same message that we just sent across. So we'll come down and we'll get that object. We'll do save and run once. Now it should come through, transcribe it, go and check the stock levels, and on the left-hand side, pass it back to us. So there we go. It's given us a response. For some reason, it's come back in Welsh, which is quite interesting. So we'll just go through and check why that's happened. It looks like in here, it's come the request. We can come down to actually and put this, and we're going to specify the language. So we'll just put in there, we'll do EN, so it should come back as English. I'm not quite sure why that happened. Again, this is just the first time it's been done. So again, there's going to be a few issues with it. We'll come back to the left-hand side, record a clip, and we'll say, please, can you check the current stock level? We'll send this off, and then we'll do run once. And then it should come back on the left-hand side here and show us all of the different results that we've got access to. So going through. So there we go. Now we're able to see all of this information. And because we've told it to be proactive, it's been able to go through and tell us that we should probably issue a reorder for some of these information, for some of these products. So now we've got this information. So we'll be able to go through and do another scenario, which is around sending an email. So we'll come into here. We're going to do send a new email. Now, as you can see here, we've not got any information that we'll be able to input, or nothing's been passed across. What we're going to need to do is come across to our custom variables, but don't worry, you don't need to upgrade. We're going to be able to do this actually natively. So you're going to come down to the bottom here where we've got the scenario inputs and outputs. We're going to need to open this up. We're going to need to come in here and we're going to do email underscore address. We're going to say the email address of the person we are sending the email to. There we go. We're going to call it text. We're going to say it's required. We're going to come down and say email underscore subject. We're going to say the subject line of the email we are sending. We'll come down and say it's required. We're going to add a new line item in, and this is going to be email underscore body. And we're going to say the body of the email that we are sending across in a HTML format. And then we'll be able to say required and then yes. So now what we'll be able to do is have all of this information outputted. So now we've got access to these scenario inputs. So what we've got here is email body, email subject. And if we come up to here, we've got email subject. So now what's going to automatically happen is the AI agent is going to go through and on demand, be able to specify the information and be able to send it back. So we'll be able to do save. We're going to be able to do scenario output. So we could say email message, the message that was sent to the person specified. We'll be able to do save. So now what we'll be able to do is, for example, in return output, is we can come through and we'll be able to see exactly what that email is. Or for example, in this case, it's only got the message ID at the moment. So we'd be able to go through and use that as we need. So if we came back into our Meg.com agent, what we'll do is we'll come up to the top here. We're going to go through and make sure that it's got access to the tool. So again, we'll come through, we'll do email. We'll be able to do YouTube demo, send emails. We can say the ability to send emails as required and by the user. We'll be able to do save and add. So now it's got the ability to do that. So we'll be able to do save. And then what we're going to do just for time is we're actually going to duplicate this. I'm going to go through and show you that the text side works as well. So we'll just save. We'll come through here and just update some of the fields. And we'll put across text from that first message, just because that's going to be the message that comes through. We'll do save. We can say, great, please email Alex asking for 10 mugs and 100 coffee beans. We'll send that off. Now what we'll be able to do is if we do run once, we should get that request coming through. So as we've got here, we've got that text that's gone through, and now it's going to be able to go through and complete that action for us. So if we come into here, what we'll see is that we've got that information at the bottom here. So email has successfully been sent. So if we check our Gmail account, and as you can see here, we've got that email that's just gone out. So now that we'll be able to actually request that new beans coming through. So again, able to automatically get the AI agent to send out emails as we need it to. We're going to run through one last quick demo, which is just how to search the internet. So all we need to do for that is Perplexity, create a chat completion, make sure that we've got our API key added in there. We're going to do our message. We're going to need to add in a custom variable. So we'll come through and do user. We're going to come down to the left-hand side here, scenario inputs. We're going to say prompt. We're going to say in here, we're going to say the request from the user on what they want to search the internet about. We'll be able to do required. We'll do save. Again, we're going to need to change this to be on demand. We'll be able to do save, activate a scenario. Again, it's just going to come through. And now if we update in here, what we should get through any second now is the ability to use it in there. Again, I find this is quite slow for actually being able to use those inputs once we specified them. So we'll come back into here. We'll see if it loads up. No, still not yet. We'll just refresh the scenario. So now if we come back in, we'll be able to hopefully see that input. So there we go, the prompt. Now we'll be able to do save. We'll come through and we'll be able to do return outputs. We're going to add a scenario output, which is going to be search results. We're going to say the results from searching the internet. We'll be able to say required. We can say save. Again, if you wanted to go through, you can add a module here around maybe the formatting the results as well. We'll be able to do save. Activate the scenario so it's able to use on demand. We need to make sure that we save at the bottom here. We'll come across and now we've got the search results. So what we'll be able to do is come through and do choices, message, and then content. We'll pull that across. So now it's got the ability to send that information back. We'll come out of here. We'll come back across to our AI agent. We'll make sure that we add the tool in here. So we'll come across. We'll do add tools and we'll do search. YouTube search internet will be say the ability to search the internet as a agent. Be able to do add, save, and now we've got the ability to do it. So if we come to the left-hand side, please can you tell me the latest AI news? We'll then send this off, and then what we should be able to do is if we do run once, should be able to go through, analyze the request, trigger our scenario. So exactly as we've got there, that's great. It's gone through, it's now searching the internet for us. And it's going to be able to return those results. So if we come back into our agent, what we should see any second now is that we get that response back. Again, we're going to touch on the pros and cons quickly in a second, just around how this compares to N8N and what my final thoughts are on the agent. As you can see here, we're not able to see what that agent's doing until it fully completes the request. As we can see on the left-hand side here, we've now got all of that information coming through, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And we've got the ability to respond back to this as we need with that text response as well. And if you're not sure why we keep getting a few messages come through, all we need to do is come down to here and say user only, do condition. And then what we're going to say is that we need username not equal to, and then AI agent or whatever you've called it or whatever that unique bot ID is, so it won't go through and try and respond to its own messages. So what are my final thoughts and what are the pros and cons around it? Well, I really like the fact that we've got the ability to have global agents so that they can run across multiple different scenarios. Again, they can then have additional tools for that specific workflow, but we can give it some fundamental ones. I really like the way that it's got that visual tool, again, having those descriptions, again, very similar to N8N, the way we could go through and execute it. I really like the no-code friendly UI that Make.com has really perfected over the last couple of years. I think it's going to be increasingly effective because Make.com's got a huge customer base and they're going to be able to iterate incredibly quickly with this technology. And they've got more native app integrations. So it's going to be something that I really keep an eye on in the future because it's got so many different more apps that it can leverage versus N8N at the moment. However, if we run through some of the cons, my biggest thing is that I can't see what's going on. So if we were to look at N8N, you would be able to see that trigger. I'll show some B-roll in the background just around so we know what the agent's doing as it goes through and completes it. What I also feel like is maybe it's more overhead, maybe it's more setup that we need to do initially. Just seems a little bit slower to get it up and running, but again, that's mitigated if you're able to use it across multiple different scenarios. That debugging, so again, being able to see what it's doing, where the problems are. Again, that real-time insights, really all of those tying in together. We've got some less experimental flexibility as well, so what we're able to do with it, and that's where it ties into that ability to use, MCP or community. Again, it's going to go through and be a bit more closed source at the start, but I think that's going to open up in the future, which will be really interesting. We've also got no human in the loop, which again is a really good feature that we're able to leverage in N8N, and it's a bit more rigid in the tool building. It doesn't feel like it's as flexible as N8N is at the moment. I still think it's a really good product. I think it's going to be really great for lots of those small and medium-sized businesses that are already using Make.com and maybe don't want to migrate to a platform like N8N. Again, we're going to see how this progresses over the future. I'm really keen to stay close to this. Let me know in the comments below if you've got a specific video you want to see on it. That's all today. Stay tuned for more around AI agents and automation, and have a great day.